I didn't know Julia Beck's name until last month, but it's ingrained in my memory like a nightmare that lingers long after you've woken up. It began one night when my phone rang at 4:11 a.m., pulling me out of the kind of deep sleep that leaves you confused and slow. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway because I was sleepy. There was a pause long enough to make me wonder if someone had accidentally dialed, and then a woman's voice whispered, "Is this David?" with a low, trembling voice that made my heart sink. I should have hung up or told her that she had the wrong number, but something about her voice felt desperate in a way that went beyond a simple Misty. "Yes," I murmured, scarcely raising my voice above a mutter. "Oh," she added, sounding both relieved and frightened. "My name is Julia Beck. Please don't hang up. I need your help." She spoke with a peculiar earnestness that defied my better judgment, and even though I didn't know her or had any reason to listen, I recall feeling something catch in my throat as if her anxiety was contagious. I remained on the line. I tried to sound calm when I said, "I don't know you. How did you get my number?" "It doesn't matter," but she answered quickly, her voice quivering. "They're watching me. They've been watching for so long, and now I think they're coming," she said, and her words struck a chord deep inside me, making me want to believe her. But then again, who calls a stranger at 4 a.m. with such a story? "I'm sorry," I said as gently as I could, "but I don't know what you want me to do." She was silent for a few seconds, and then, in a voice so quiet I nearly missed it, she whispered, "If you receive a call from me again, David, run and don't look back." The days that followed were quiet, but there was a sort of eerie quiet that hovered around the edges of my life. Every time my phone rang, I felt a jolt of fear, and even familiar numbers made me pause. I stared at my phone, half convinced that I had just dreamed the entire thing. Who was Julia Beck? Why did she sound like she knew me? More chillingly, why had she called me with such a strange warning? A part of me couldn't get rid of the feeling that I was being watched, like invisible eyes followed me everywhere I went. Every time I walked down the street, I looked over my shoulder because every shadow seemed sharper and every sound more menacing than before. The image of Julia's last whispered warning kept coming back to me, but I couldn't figure out why, so I started telling myself that maybe it was some elaborate prank or a wrong number. 3 days after the call, I found a letter in my mailbox. There was no return address, just my name written in shaky handwriting inside. I found a single piece of paper with 2 words scrolled on it. "I'm sorry." My blood went cold. I didn't know if it was Julia or someone else, but it was a connection I didn't want a week past without incident, and I was beginning to think it was over. I'd even started telling myself that maybe to call the letter it was all a mistake. Then on a cold Friday night, as I was winding down, my phone rang. When I saw the number, my heart lurched. It was the same unknown number that had called me that first night, Julia's number. For a moment I just stared at it, my hands trembling as the ring droned on. I could feel that familiar knot of dread tightening in my stomach, urging me to ignore it. But despite the fear, a part of me had to know. I answered, "Hello." There was a strange distorted noise on the other end, like a bad connection or static interference, and then just as I was about to hang up, I heard a faint whisper, muffled and strained, but unmistakably Julia's voice. "They know who you are now," she whispered, almost as if she were crying. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean for you." I couldn't sleep that night because every groan and creak in my house made me uneasy. I didn't dare turn off the lights, but I knew it wouldn't help. The next day, I decided I needed answers. Her words abruptly ended and were replaced by a loud, piercing shriek that sounded like it was coming from far away and echoing through the line. I dropped the phone, the sound still ringing in my ears. It felt like the shadows had crept closer, suffocating me. It seemed as though Julia Beck didn't exist, but she was buried in the back pages of an old news website when I tried searching for her online, going through countless stories and social media profiles. I came upon a little article from 10 years ago about Julia Beck, who disappeared from her house late one night without leaving any trace of a struggle, leaving only her cell phone and a mysterious message that read, "The police eventually deemed it a cold case, so don't look back." I was lying in bed when I heard a faint, rhythmic tapping at my bedroom window. My heart was pounding, so I sat up, keeping my eyes fixed on the window across the room. I didn't want to look, didn't want to see what might be outside, but the tapping continued like someone knocking to be let in. I took a deep breath, each step feeling heavier as though something wanted me to stop. When I finally reached the window, I forced myself to look outside, but there was nothing there, just the empty dark. I felt a tiny feeling of relief as the street below was lit up by a far-off streetlight, but then I turned back to the room and saw that my phone was lighting up, the screen indicating an incoming call from Julia Beck. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't ignore it. As my heart raced, I pressed answer almost reflexively while holding the phone to my ear as it kept ringing. David, desperation began to creep into my voice, but I was able to choke it out. "Why are you doing this?" Julia said, her voice breaking. "They're making me they need someone else, someone who can take my place." Her voice was barely audible over what sounded like distant screams. "They're almost here. Please run. You still have a chance. Who are you?" She said, "I'm so sorry, David," and then, as her voice waned, she added, "They'll come for you too." The line died, and I threw my phone across the room. The horror of what she had said set in. She was telling me something sinister that had been haunting her and was now looking for a new victim. Julia Beck was attempting to save herself. I couldn't sleep that night because I couldn't get rid of the feeling that I wasn't alone anymore, that something invisible was watching me wait, and when dawn finally broke, I felt a strange urge to just run and never look back, but instead I locked every door, closed every window, and waited. It's been 2 days since that last call, and every time my phone rings, I feel that same dread and I can't bring myself to answer. I know it's her, and I know that she's waiting for me to break to answer so that whatever she brought with her can reach me. The worst part was that last night, just as I was falling into a fitful sleep, I heard a faint knock at my door. I didn't move, and I didn't answer, and when I checked my phone this morning, I saw a new message saying, "Thank you for answering, you've saved me. Beck, Julia."